that. And so that's why it's so important to send that email, to call that legislator's office, to come in and testify, to share like your experience and how it's going to impact, your world or your profession or your community, because we do not hold all of that expertise.
So many gems, people. If you are watching or listening right now, take away all of this and implement it into your life. We're good? You all ready? You good? Ready? Good. All right, ready? All right. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Conversation Piece, the podcast about the missing pieces of the conversations we're having right here in Indianapolis. My name is Patrick, and I'm your host. I almost forgot because I am very excited to be back here with you to kick off 2025, the year of community. 2024 was the year of the nap. In 2025, we're figuring out how to expand those communal connections, dive into collective care, and do everything that we can to put community at the forefront. If you have been listening to the show, you know that we have a new initiative kicking off third Thursdays of every month called The Open Door, where anybody and everybody can come into the studio and chat for as much time as we can give them, generally 15 minutes. Got a form, link in bio. Check that out for more if you're interested. Okay. My guest today is a dynamic educator, administrator, public servant, and leader who fights for Naptonians and so many others in the state Senate as the representative of District 46. As an IPS teacher and principal, she has an intimate understanding of the most pressing needs of some of our most vulnerable communities, and as a legislator has worked to take change from concept to concrete. In addition to doing all of that work, she still finds time to truly be in and a part of the community that she serves and can be seen at events all over the Nap and in Cottage Home, where I also live. There is so much that I hope that we can get into today, so I will tarry no further and say that it is my great joy and privilege to welcome Senator Andrea Hunley to the show. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that really kind intro. I really appreciate it. And it sounds extra awesome coming from your radio voice as well.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. One of the first times we ever met was in Tomorrow Bookstore. That was in person. I don't know if you remember this, but I was just standing there and you came in and I'm like, oh my God, that's Andrea Hunley. And you said that your fam had given you a little bit of time and you were going to take some time to read and like literally be by yourself and away from the work. I read while I was doing research that you're from Fort Wayne, and one of your favorite places to read growing up was in a little cove in the main central Fort Wayne library. I was wondering when you first realized that reading was a passion, and did you have an idea at that time that you wanted to be an English teacher when you grew up?
Ooh, love the questions. Love the questions. Okay, so we're going to get deep real fast.
Let's do it.
And I have to tell you that I'm a little nervous today because I didn't bring any notes with me. I like to be a prepared person, but I just wanted to embrace this moment to really just have a conversation with you. Okay. So you asked me about reading, and the truth of the matter is that I really became an avid reader in 5th grade after my best friend died. She passed away suddenly on Christmas Eve. There was an accident that happened in her basement, and she died. And we grew up together. I mean, we were best buds. She lived next door to my grandparents. I was over at her house all the time. We climbed trees together. We would pick berries in the backyard together. I mean, all of the things. We were inseparable. And when Carmen passed away, I just became really afraid of getting close to anybody. And at that time, this is back in the 80s, we didn't encourage kids to go see a counselor. We didn't take them to the school social worker. We didn't do any of that. And so I really just took all of my feelings and became very closed in and introverted and found books to be my safe space. And so everywhere I would go, I mean, if you see any pictures of me from like the 4 years after Carmen passed away, I'm just sitting in the corner of the room with a book, reading. And I just became obsessed with series, the Boxcar Children and everything by Judy Blume and American Girl books and, R.L. Stine and whatever I could get my hands on that were awesome series. I just kept reading. And that's really where I just found a lot of solace, but also safe adventure, right, for me, in those books. And then I got interested in journalism and writing. And so I actually wanted to be a journalism teacher.
Okay. Wanted to be a journalism teacher, not a journalist.
Correct.
Okay.
A journalism teacher, because I loved my journalism teacher when I got to high school. She's amazing. actually, that's where Ryan, my husband, and I really got to know each other, was in journalism class.
Okay.
So I have a lot of fondness for journalism.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to take a moment to talk about, like, I appreciate the vulnerability right up front, but also just like the candor that you speak about, something that's really like close and intimate and tragic to share. And I think that's one of the reasons that I personally have found such inspiration in the work that you do, even though I didn't know that. I feel like that response right there really made me feel what I felt since moving to Cottage Home and seeing the work that you do. So thank you for that. So you brought up high school, and I did want to get into a really big question off of the top. You were voted most likely to be the first woman president. Looking back, do you think that there was a particular platform that you would have run on?
Okay, so first I have to tell you that I don't even know if I should say this out loud, and now this is going to be, on record. But in high school, when we did like our mock debate and mock presidential election, I actually ran as the Republican president.
Okay.
So the question is why? And the reason is because at that time, my teacher drew like a T-chart on the board, and she put, Republicans on this side, Democrats on this side, and listed everything off that, that they believe. And it was like, Democrats believe this, Republicans believe the opposite. And so there was one thing in particular that stood out to me. And you and I have this in common, and that's being adopted. And so she put on the board that Democrats believe in abortion and Republicans believe in adoption. I'm 17 years old, right? So everything seems really black and white, right, at that age. And so I see this, and I think, and I went home and I said to my Mom, I found out today that I'm a Republican because I believe in adoption. And that's really, and so I had a really great campaign, and, I, presented in front of class and all of the things, and I was very persuasive, and folks saw my leadership skills, and that's how I got voted most likely to become the first woman president.
That's so interesting. Not least of all because you are a progressive-leaning person, I believe, and a Democrat yourself.
Yes.
But also because, that just really reminded me when I grew up. So I grew up in Rensselaer, Indiana, and I just talked about this recently, but I don't remember ever meeting or seeing anybody talk about progressive ideas or say anything positive about Democrats. Yeah. And so I always just assumed that I was Republican and that it was wrong to be a Democrat. And to think about that ideology, even though it wasn't necessarily like that, but it was split as black and white. There was no nuance to it. It was just you're either this or that. And thinking about how that's just this is a state that we kind of live in.
Yes. And what's also interesting too is that at that time, my parents didn't talk to me about, what it meant to be a Democrat or a Republican, right?
Sure.
And later I've asked my mom since about this story, and she said to me, what I did is I just prayed every single day that when you went to college that you would see the light. And I thought that was really funny, but she never told me that, until now. And of course, now I understand obviously all the nuances, and that there's, a lot of nuances around choice and around bodily autonomy and around adoption and around family rights and, paternal parent rights and all of those things, as well. And so I definitely have grown into seeing how things are much more nuanced.
For sure. Well, shout out to your mom for the prayers.
Yes,
it must have came through.
Must have worked.
Okay, so there's another thing. I think this is still right around high school time. I wanted to make sure I got the timeline right, but I read that you went to a conference that I believe was in high school where you heard a speaker say, or asking every woman in attendance to run for office. And I read that was something that made you go, oh, I need to take this serious. This is something I need to take seriously. One, is the timeline right on that? And two, I didn't even finish it. What was my second question? My second question was, do you remember specifically what it was coming out of that you really wanted to lean into?
Yeah. So that was actually when I was a principal, when I went to this conference. So it was actually, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I still have my notes from that conference. It was called Ready to Run. And And it was Dr. Sue Ellspermann who, then went on to become, she was a lieutenant governor, and then she went on to become the chancellor and president for Ivy Tech. And she was standing in front of the room and she said, women have to be asked to run for office 7 times before they will actually run. And so then she stood up there and she said, you need to run. And she said it 7 times. And I actually went to that conference by myself. And so I was sitting there at the table and taking notes and listening. And I thought, maybe she is talking to me. Maybe I should be considering the fact that I could do this work. I mean, what makes someone qualified to be a part of the government that's supposed to be for the people and by the people, right? And so that was really kind of a catalyst moment for me to start getting involved. And I made the commitment then to do one thing every month to get more involved in the political process.
Interesting. Yeah. Had you been thinking about a potential run at some point prior to that?
No, I'd been thinking about ways that I could get involved in policy. I really like doing policy. And so for some, campaigns, I was their education policy advisor, and I've worked in the background on, giving people kind of advice or breaking down the nuances of, education ease and all of those things.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really been thinking myself about running.
That makes sense. And so sticking in this principal era, I also read, I did a lot of reading.
Where did you do all this reading? Is there all this information about me out there?
Shout out Google and the people's access to information about people. What I read was the white blazer was a thing that you came upon as an administrator, as a principal, and it was something that you were, I'm going to do this. I was wondering, well, first I was going to ask, what is following through on a decision like that, seemingly small, how does that impact you as you do stuff as a legislator? But I want to ask you, because we were talking off mic before we got on, that you do a lot of communication through fashion. So I want to ask, the white blazer, the origin, why was that the thing that you wanted to go with? And then how has that then been maybe a catalyst for that communication through fashion?
Yeah. Yes, we were talking about fashion because you have on a fly fit and these very, very clean white sneakers today.
Thank you.
Yes. So my first year as a principal, I decided to wear white blazer for our school photos. And I wore the white blazer every year, so for the 10 years that I was a principal, each of my school photos, I'm in a white blazer, not the exact same one, but, and I do like communicating through fashion. And for me, white symbolizes hope. And it symbolizes vision for the future. And I really have, and I also just think it's a boss color as well, right? And
not everybody can pull off a white blazer.
No. And in an elementary school, it's pretty risky. I mean, we do, lunch duty and there is a lot of ketchup and applesauce.
That's true. Okay. But because of the blazer, you're probably letting these kids know.
That's right.
No ketchup or applesauce over here.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a boss move, but also, just that symbolizing hope and leadership. I mean, you talk about someone riding in on, the white horse and kind of that, that type of thing. It wasn't that. I don't think I'm saving anybody. But it's just that, really stepping into my power that I am the leader who is tasked with bringing the vision, and that vision is that we hope for a better tomorrow than we have today.
Yeah.
And so that was really what that was for me. And that was before Olivia Pope, by the way, started doing the, wearing all of her white, doing the things.
You heard it here first, yes. Andrea Hunley with the white blazer.
Yes.
That's the originator. Yes. Well, I appreciate you sharing that because I think I'm going to try and tie some stuff together. I read that one of those catalysts beyond the conference for running was seeing how many unqualified people were working on education policy. My wife also works in education. Ironically, she was a 8th grade English teacher at Wayne Township. She now works has worked at Washington Township. And I remember we had just started dating in 2019 when the Red for Ed protests came out, which is also, I feel is a fashion thing. At a certain point, I didn't think about it then, but now that we're having this conversation, I'm okay, that's a statement to wear red in that moment. Do you remember that time?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember? And so you ran first in 2022. But I'm assuming that you said 7 or 8 ago. So you've had it in your mind that you were probably going to make this run at this time. I have to read this. So was there a specific thing related to education legislation that really solidified your Thanos mentality of, fine, I'm going to do it myself?
I think that it was death by a thousand cuts.
Okay.
Really. I mean, that there was just always something chipping away at teacher bargaining rights.
Sure.
Right. That was, a big catalyst for Red for Ed. It was, chipping away at principal autonomy, at the budget for schools, all of these things, just over time, especially over, 11 years in administration, I was like, we have got to make sure that there are people who understand what's happening on the ground, really making these decisions. But I'll tell you, so with the Red for Ed, when I was there at the State House when we were doing that in 2019. And then when, the past couple of sessions where I've been in the State House and we have our Red for Ed days, I always wear my red in solidarity. But I went on a school visit a couple months ago and we walk into the school and there were several of us legislators that day coming in from both political parties, from both the House and Senate. And I noticed right away that the first classroom, the teacher was wearing a Red for Ed t-shirt. And I thought, she's communicating to us. And we went to the next classroom. That teacher had one on. And then we keep going. And every teacher in the building, they had all coordinated to wear their Red for Ed shirts. And I knew that they're sending a message loud and clear that is like, we are teachers. We are united. We believe in collective bargaining. We believe in having a union. We believe in having a voice. Or they're communicating all of that just through their t-shirt.
I love that. And I appreciate you bringing that up because I want to ask you if you could share a little bit about the overlaps of building community and consensus as an educator and as a legislator.
Yes. So here's a good illustration. What people don't realize is that over 90% of the bills that we pass are actually bipartisan. You just don't realize it because that's not what makes the news. That's not what makes the headline. People don't want to, see us holding hands and singing Kumbaya, right? They want to see where we're arguing. Yeah. But I serve on the Utilities Committee as one of my committees, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But I serve on the Utilities Committee, and last session, 100% of the bills that we passed were bipartisan. And all of them, the Citizens Action Coalition, which is like the citizens watchdog group, right, that makes sure that we're doing good things for the community, they were either in support or neutral on every single one of our bills, meaning that they were not opposed to any of them, which is huge on utilities where, that crosses through things with the environment. Obviously, with our rate pay hikes, like it can get expensive for folks. So we're also looking at that. We've got big businesses that have a lot of money tied up in this, so corporate interest. And so to really work together to create consensus as we're coming in, I mean, it takes a lot of work and a lot of amendments and a lot of conversations and arguing. But to get to a point at the end where folks can be in agreement is a challenge, but is important. And so I was proud that on that committee, we were able to do that.
Does consensus come first before building community? Do you have to build community in order to achieve a consensus, or is it not as like black and white, as binary as that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that ideally you've built some type of community or relationships and trust. But how do you do that, in a role now where folks live all over the state, where we are together for 4 months? Some folks, I only see them for our one committee meeting. So I only see them for an hour a week. Yeah. And, so how do you build trust and community, with folks? And so that's a challenge. And I do think that my role as a principal and as a teacher has helped me learn how to do that and do that quickly. But it still takes intention.
Yeah. Not to give away anything out of your bag, but is there something that you pull specifically from your experience as a principal and educator that you then utilize as a legislator? Not that you're treating legislators as children, like you're utilizing that mindset. I don't want to say that's what we're doing.
Sometimes they act like
but
it.
It's like, but sometimes it is. It's just like we want to, it's like, hey, I got to put my principal hat back on real quick to get everybody listening.
I really think that it's just about like understanding that at the root, like people want connection. And people want connection. And I think that one thing, a gift that being adopted gives us, if I may, is that we have the ability to intersect with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds.
Sure.
And, I grew up in northern Indiana, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, right? Where for part of my time, we lived on a poor side of town where I was bussed out to a magnet school, right? So I can talk to folks who grew up in that similar environment. But then we moved out into the suburbs where our grocery store had a hitching post for the Amish, right? So I can also, talk with the folks who, like some of my uncles, like to go hunting and do these types of things, right? And so I think that this ability to connect is something that I'm really grateful for that I have in my background. I think that that's helped me.
Yeah, I totally resonate with this idea as adoptees or adopted people, particularly if you were adopted transracially, that you do end up in a unique situation if you can find yourself to that point of awareness and cognizance that you can bridge some communities that a lot of people aren't able to. I feel the same way, and I didn't really realize till I started my own journey 4 years ago, like, oh, I've navigated white spaces. Like, that's what I know how to do. I don't know how to navigate Asian spaces. And so I threw myself into that and trying to figure that out. And then it was over the last 2 years, like, what's the balance? What does it mean to be a bridge? Is that something I even want to do? Which is why I take such inspiration from your work, because you've thrown yourself in the middle of, you've like laid down across the chasm to be the bridge for a lot of people. And I appreciate you bringing up, like, coming from Northern Indiana, going to different areas and having to work with different people to build consensus, build community, and have conversation, because especially coming out of this most recent election, and I think just where we've been the last 8, 10, 12 years, has been a lot of, maybe not fear mongering, but I think we've been buying into fear more so than hope. More so than the white blazer. I think we've been living in the dark a little bit, despite the fact that we have tons of access now.
Yeah. In 2016, after the election, I wore black for 40 days straight. And
okay.
I didn't tell anyone, right? I don't tell people that I'm doing this.
Sure.
It's just like my own quiet and personal way to just, acknowledge what I am feeling. And that's, I did for 40 days straight. And I, because I decided to myself, like, I'm going to allow myself to be upset, to feel all of the things.
Sure.
And then after my 40-day mourning period, then we got to get to work.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself that bit of time.
So what does that morning look like for you, if you don't mind sharing? Just 40 days is a lot, I think.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's intimately involved, even at that time as a principal, intimately involved in the work, you got to go back to work.
Yep.
And secretly harbor, I guess, some of this grieve on your own.
Yes.
Did you feel like it was like you were in isolation in your grief, or
well, 100%,
what does that look like?
Because, as a school principal, I would never talk about politics or my own, political beliefs. And in fact, when I decided to run, I was really nervous about sharing my political beliefs with my community because I hadn't ever done that, right?
Sure.
I'd always worked in a nonpartisan way. And so that was a big risk. I didn't want to alienate anybody who I'd grown to love and care for their kids and all of those things. And so that was the other piece that I knew, back in 2016, that I'm like, okay, this is just like me by myself, privately, feeling these things.
Yeah.
And so this is, it was just a way for me, every morning to be like, okay, I still have to get up and do the work, but I'm also acknowledging that it is hard. And I feel like I am pushing through this, just fog to do it.
Yeah. And I appreciate that the wearing of black was not necessarily for anybody else but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it, for whatever reason, could send a message that, oh, she's showing up in black every single day. What's going on here? Mm-hmm. Was that a conversation you had to navigate with folks?
No, there was one person in the whole building who noticed.
Okay.
And it was actually someone else who was also struggling with the outcome of the election. And they asked me, it was 2 weeks in, asked me, and I was like, yes, I'm just holding space for myself.
Yeah.
And so then in the morning when she would see me, she would kind of give me, a little head nod. Yeah.
A little solidarity.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So it's isolation, but not alone.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. So the reason I bring up fear is because I feel like specifically in where we share this small town Indiana, predominantly white community grow up situation a little bit. I think recently, especially, we have the acquittal of the officers that murdered Herman Whitfield.
Mm-hmm.
I also was just at the sentencing hearing for Billy Davis, who attacked an Asian student at IU, who also happened to be adopted. And some of these things, the reason I'm asking this question is because when I look at all of the rhetoric and stuff that people are talking about and why things are happening, people are continue to say hate. It's like hate is the motivator. And for me, it feels like hate is a byproduct of the fear. And so I wanted to ask you, because one of the underlying things that we're trying to achieve this year, or trying to answer, is how can we move Indiana to a sustainable shade of purple? And I think that doesn't mean that, a bunch of people are now Democrats. It means, can we dispel the fear that I think might be motivating folks to make decisions that might not be in their best interest in the long run? So I want to ask you, how do we do that? Especially someone who's practiced, I think, in breaking down barriers and again, building those bridges.
Yeah. So I think that, I want to acknowledge, the two cases that you just brought up, and, and with, Herman Whitfield, and oh my gosh, and his poor parents.
Yeah.
And when that story first broke, and I've had the opportunity to stand in solidarity with folks and learn a little bit more about the nuances of what happened that night. Every time I see a picture of him, I just think about my dad or my brother, or my cousins, and like what does that mean for people to be afraid of them? Right. To be afraid of someone who is tall and dark-skinned, and like, what does that mean that their first reaction is fear and not care? And that is what's so hard to be in a Black or a brown body, is that we don't always get thought of as human, and people then don't treat our bodies as such.
Right.
And so I think that is just really scary. And so I definitely am hurting with the family right now, and praying for a new path forward. But we've got to also change the system, and so that's a whole other piece, is that we've got to break down these systems, because it's not just enough to to do training around sensitivity or cultural responsivity or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's not enough, because this is about those underlying biases that are like unconscious or subconscious that come out, that you can't just train out in an hour-long training, right? And so I think that's really key. So I think part of what we have to do is be in proximity to each other. We talk about the theme of community, right? That being in proximity to someone who is not like you helps build empathy. Right. And so that's really such a key of what we have to do. And, we talk about policing, and I don't want to get off on policing because I definitely could. But one thing I will say, though, is that I do think that it is an issue that our officers don't live in community. It used to be the requirement.
Right.
And now you've got people who live in Pendleton, no offense to that place, but or wherever, and they drive home at night to their lily white community, and then they come here to be the quote unquote saviors.
Yep.
And that is a problem. And that is, we need folks who, you should see, the police car next door to your house, where it is someone who is in your community that is your neighbor. And when we are taking care of our neighbors and working with our neighbors, then things will look a lot different.
100%.
Yes. But I also have like a magic wand solution, that like goes beyond just that. I mean, I think that we need to like rethink, how we do policing anyways, because it's built out of slavery. And so please, we could go on that for a whole other episode.
Parts 3, 5, and 12 all in here for sure.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I have not, so this might get cut out actually, but I haven't talked to a lot of politicians on the show. Actually, you and Andre Carson, who we've already recorded with, was coming out after you, are the first two. And I appreciate the vulnerability and the transparency, because I think my fear of politics has been the reframing or the appropriating of narrative.
Yeah.
As an adopted person, I think I'm very sensitive to the appropriation of a narrative. And I feel like in politics, that has, because of media, not because of politics, well, because of politics itself, but media, I think, too, has driven this narrative of what politics is, when in reality, it's a lot different than that. And I appreciate what you're saying about, like, to hear from you and to hear from Congressman Carson about changing systems and how we need to literally rethink and we're not diving into it, but just like wanting to do that, to voice that, I think it feels rare. And it shouldn't.
Well, and I will say that we don't always get it right.
Right.
I mean, we don't always get it right. We're trying. But that's why I think that it's so important that we are government by the people and for the people.
Sure.
At the State House, I thought that everyone needed to have a law degree in order to run for office. And so I actually consulted with a few friends and asked them, okay, should I go to law school? And one of them was finally like, Hunley, like you will be surrounded by lawyers at the State House. Like we actually need people who are everyday folk to do this work. And so at the State House, it's actually, I mean, we have a lot of farmers, realtors, many lawyers, but small business owners, large business owners, some teachers, nurses, doctors, everyday people. And I think that is what's really important. And that if we can focus on that, I think that that's how we create a bridge. So instead of that R label or the D label, if we can focus on people, I think that that's how we, as you said, turn Indiana purple, right? Is get folks to stop focusing on the party and get them to focus on the person.
Right. Meet people's humanity.
Yes.
Like I feel like, and again, like when I'm talking about fear, it's like I feel like we're afraid of each other's humanity for some reason because it doesn't align with what our humanity is or what align with our ideology, and we're only allowing the black and white or the binary to exist when in reality it's a multiplicity. And you just talked about all of the different people that make up the legislature, which I would not have thought of, because when I think about it right now, and this is something I've been talking about with folks, is like, I would love to find a way to remake the way that government looks at a local level, because I think, how do you get people to represent you if they don't look like you or operate within your same industry or community? And while I think that some of that can happen, I think what you've just shared here is that it is a little bit more diverse and nuanced, I think, than what a layperson like myself would believe.
Yes. And shout out to our team of lawyers, right? That help us.
Shout out to the lawyers.
Yeah, work hard to get things right. But I mean, I can just give them a kernel of an idea and they can turn it into a whole bill. We're not the ones that are writing all of it. But I do think, though, that being in proximity to the community is what really helps.
For sure. Again, this is the year of community. So I want to ask you really quickly, what does community mean to you? How do you define that for yourself?
I think that I am fortunate enough to be part of many different, communities, and I feel like that they're your chosen people. Right? That's your community. It's your chosen people. Whether it's the neighborhood, being part of the Near East Side, I think is, a great community. I've got my faith community, which is wonderful. I mean, Christ Church on the Circle has been an amazing home, for me. And obviously, all of Indianapolis, definitely is a community, but I don't know if we have a full shared identity yet. I think that there are, pockets. Like I am so grateful to be in proximity to the arts community here. Yeah. And part of that I feel like is by way of my husband, but I feel like now I'm like earning my stripes. Yeah. In the community.
You were just on the pattern panel this year at the Creative Economy Summit. So.
Yes. And so, but I think that that's a very rich community. We celebrate the Black community, and obviously like Gang has become like a catalyst for getting us together, but there are many ways that the Black community comes out and supports each other. So I just think that that it's your chosen people, it's that chosen tribe that we have, and I think that the more that we are intentional about being in community, celebrating the community, and inviting others in is really key.
The invite, I think, is really I think it's a very important part of it, because we've brushed on the surface of it, but how do you like dispel fear? How do you know something if you never exposed to it, if you never have proximity? Like, how are you supposed to know anything other than what you hear? And again, in our current time, there is a level of accountability that you have to accept when it's like, okay, we have the ability to access all of these things. Yes, algorithms will put in front of you what it will, but there is a level of you can get this if you really want to. And people don't know that they might really want to do that if we aren't out there showing that or just existing in front of them.
Yes.
And then having a conversation with them, inviting them into the conversation.
And what's been so great is, an example of a community that has invited me in that's been really powerful. So when I was a principal of the school that I was at, we focused on 2 languages, Spanish and Mandarin. And through our work with Mandarin, we have a great Chinese community here in Indiana, and especially I'm in the central Indiana area. And so I, have been invited in to celebrate Chinese New Year. And so that's something that now we do every single year as a family. And It is really great to be invited in and to be part of a community and learn. And I got to go up to Noblesville High School last year, present for Chinese New Year. And I have a little bit of polite Mandarin that I can say, yes. And so, to kind of, just celebrate all of those great things where that's not something that I could have envisioned as, a young person. But I have such a greater understanding now for, a large swath of the Asian population that's here, and an appreciation for the community because they have invited me in.
100%. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And a lot of work that I want to do this year and that I've been focused on. One of the reasons I'm okay, I think I'm in Indianapolis is for a reason is because of my unique situation, identity as a Korean and Asian American adoptee, but also the really diverse Asian diaspora that is here that people I don't think know about, including ourselves, which is we talk about silos and not getting out of your own way, essentially. And I think that's something that I've kind of noticed and something I'm really interested and keen on, how do we bridge those gaps?
Yes.
Because how do we become a stronger, more cohesive community as just an Asian diasporic community, which then in turn will allow us to be a stronger community and ally for other communities in the city. And I think in the long term, 20, 40 years, that's where I'm okay, that's how we remake stuff. So, anyways.
And there is a great political group that I am proud to champion and support of Hoosier, Asian American, and Pacific Islanders. They're all together happy. And it is really a powerful group learning about politics, sharing to try and make a collective voice even stronger.
100%. And we need more of it because we've only had one Asian American state legislator, Christian, and he's not even in the legislature anymore. So we got to change that. But again, it's about how do we keep young people here? It's a lot of, again, parts 50, 60, and 90 of this conversation. There's a lot of it, a lot that goes into it. So I won't get into that right now. One thing I do want to get into, we've talked about adoption a little bit. And something that you mentioned early on in this conversation that I kind of want to get back into was this stepping into your full power as a person and as an educator, as a legislator. For me, unpacking my identity as an adoptee was really important, a crucial step to understanding myself and become a more whole version, the more whole version of myself that you see sitting here today. Well, that particular aspect, again, this adoption part, I think is another episode. I was wondering if there were any other parts of your identity specifically or your story that you've been able to embrace and step into more fully since you've become a legislator.
Oh, that's interesting because I'll tell you that, being a principal in IPS, I'll never forget my very first meeting that I walked into where there were, about 100 different administrators, all in the room. And it looked like I was in Black church. I'm telling you, everybody was dressed to the nines, the crocodile shoes. Everyone looked so good. And I had never been in a room with so many Black professionals before. And it was so powerful walking into that space. And I love my time in IPS because IPS is so intentional about hiring, Black leaders and then about, giving us opportunities to all be together. And so it was really great. And so for 10 years, that was my world. And then I went into the state legislature. And y'all, if you haven't seen our roster, I would just like to tell you that of the 50 members of the Senate, there are 2 of us who are Black women. And so on many committees, I would be the only Black person in the room, sometimes the only woman in the room. And it was true culture shock for me because I just spent a decade in a completely different space, right? In a completely different space. And so it has been, it's been interesting because I do feel like people are sort of telling me who I am if that makes sense,
yeah,
right?
100%.
So it's sort of like, either saying things that are like coded. What the polite thing would be to say microaggressions.
Sure.
Sometimes that's not what I call it, but
I'll call it racism.
I mean, but like to say things like, oh, I didn't know a senator could wear their hair like that.
Ugh.
When I have my hair in braids, right? Or saying things like, you were so prepared for our committee today. Like, oh my God. And you asked really good questions. So then I go back to my office and I'm like, are they surprised because I'm Black that I could do this? Like, and it's just, it is just a really strange space to be in.
Sure.
And so I feel like I'm on the defensive quite a bit. Which then can make me have missteps even within my own community.
Sure.
Right? Because I feel, and so it's just kind of this like identity swirl that is like really strange. But I have been really grateful to have good mentors and sounding boards to help me kind of process through all of that. One of those people is Josh Riddick from the Black Church Coalition.
Okay.
He's amazing. And he gives me have good feedback, helps me like hold a mirror up to myself and helps challenge me as well, which is really good and helpful. But it is interesting here in Indiana.
Definitely.
To be
we talked about the diversity of maybe industry and job that you come from, but again, like you alluded to, like there's 2 Black women in all of the Senate. I was just at the federal building and I was looking at a picture of all the judges and I'm like, there's only 2 Black women here. I'm like, this is all white people. I'm like, and I'm like, that doesn't feel, when I think about representation in politics, that feels a far cry from what I would want to see. Like, I don't feel like that reflects Indianapolis.
No. And I will tell you that I am, proud to be part of the Black Legislative Caucus. And there are 15 of us members total from across the House and the Senate. And we meet once a week during session. And that is like, it feels like coming home. Like when I walk into the room with them, I feel like I can take a deep breath. And it just, it's just a really lovely group to be a part of, a family. That's really helpful. And in fact, we have an annual conference that we get together with all of the National Black Caucus of state legislators from across the country. And there are about 700 total legislators of color across the country. And so that has been powerful to also be able to like come together
for sure
as that group.
700 feels like way not enough.
It's not enough. Oh, it's not enough.
I'm like,
not enough. Yeah, no, we need to. We're still working on getting those numbers up. But that's also powerful.
What speaks to again the power of community, like and finding it, even though you are now in a sea of white, like to be able to find it still within that sea means that you can build the power and the foundation of like, how do we get access? How do we open the doors so it doesn't always look this way?
Yes.
Which is something I'm really interested about the Asian American community here. It's like, how do we do something similar? And we take models from the Black community, from other people in Indiana, Indianapolis who have been doing these things. It's like, we need to do similar. We need to find ways to do it. Okay. I don't know if I want to ask this question. I had another question that I wanted to ask. Oh yeah, I remember now. Community. So we have a recurring segment that we do on the show called Give Them Their Flowers, sponsored by Frida's Flowers, Madeline McKinnon. Shout out to Madeline. Where we ask our guests to shout out one or any number of people that they feel like deserve their flowers today. So I want to ask you about a specific person, your husband, Ryan. After the election, the day after the election, I received one text message and it was from him. And he said some really nice things. I'm not going to say because that'll probably make me cry. But I was wondering if you would be willing to give Ryan some flowers today. Oh my
gosh, you're gonna make me cry. So I mentioned that Ryan and I started dating in high school. He is my person. And he is the kindest human. He cares so much about everybody. We say that his like catchphrase is, "You are loved and appreciated." He makes sure that everybody around him knows that they are loved and appreciated. He is just an incredible father, but I think that people don't know what an awesome partner he is to me. You know, my roles have been really, really demanding, and I come home and I am cranky or tired or, fed up with the world. And he just lets me be who I am and be soft. And I think that when I walk out of the door, I have to be in charge. There's I could go into all of the things that Black women have to do, right? But he lets me just come home and be soft. And that is so important to me, that he's such a safe space. He also is my best friend. I mean, so we have a lot of fun together. We love to go on adventures. He prefers when they're like snowboarding adventures. I prefer when they're beach adventures. We meet in the middle and hike a lot together. But just the other night, Ryan and I, it's past bedtime for the kids, and we're up and we're talking, and we hear a knock on our bedroom door. And I'm like, what? And my 14-year-old comes in. She's like, can you guys be quiet? You are laughing too loud. Right? And so like, this is us. Like, we just have so much fun together, no matter what. And so I'm really grateful for who he is for me, but then also, who he is for the rest of the community. I mean, if you have ever received a call or a text message or a gift drop on your porch from the Hunley family, it was all Ryan. It was all him. Like, I will take partial credit, especially for like those meals that we cook for people after they've had a baby. No,
Sure.
like Ryan is doing all of those things. He's the one who takes care of everybody. And I'm so grateful. And our community is so much better for having him here.
Thank you for sharing that. I've only known him for a very short time, and he has been really incredible to me, way more than I think I deserve at all. And I appreciate, so I went to the birthday party where we got the Love, You Are Loved and Appreciated koozies,
Yes.
which was really nice. But you said, I think, a similar bit about just the way he finds time to make space for everyone and then creates like places to be soft, to land softly when the world is hard. And I think that is very, very rare. I just felt like I wanted to hear you shout him out a little bit more.
And we probably talk on the phone 3 to 4 times a day during the day, which sounds ridiculous, but like it will just be like a 2-minute call. Like, he's like, hey, just checking in. How are you doing? I know you've got a tough meeting coming up, or what have you. And like, just hearing his voice, or like the other day, I was frustrated by things that were happening in the State House, and I was driving my car between all of these meetings. And so, Siri comes on to read the text message out loud to me. And it was filled with expletives, but he was like, you got this, F those mother effers. And it was just so funny to me as Siri's reading this. And I was like, I do got this. Like, let's go.
Nice.
So he's also my biggest cheerleader, which is great.
I am here for that. Hunley goals for relationships, 100%. I'm like, I want to tap into that, 100%. Well, thank you for sharing. We've got, I'm going to want to get you out of here and be respectful of your time. I got a couple more questions for you. So this one, kind of a 2-parter. Biggest misconceptions for educators or about educators, biggest misconception about legislators.
People think that teaching, especially elementary, is like a cute profession. Oh my gosh. Like, there is nothing cute about having to, especially like I think about kindergarten teachers, just take them for example, that you are in charge of about 100 personalities in your classroom of 25 children, that you also are in charge of documenting all of the learning that they are doing. So you have to be like an incredible like statistician and be able to communicate that data in a way that parents can hear it, which is hard. Or like, Johnny has a problem with X, Y, and Z, and you have to say it in a way that parents can hear it. And then you have to deal with those parents and all of their emotions. Right? It is an incredible role to have that I think is not for the faint of heart. And they definitely do not get paid enough. 100% do not get paid enough. Yes. So I think that's a big misconception. Teaching ain't cute. And then for legislators, I would say the misconception is that we are experts in anything. We are not. We are not. I mentioned the Utilities Committee. And so, I was an English teacher. Now I was a school principal. Like, I can run a business, but I do not know anything about carbon sequestration. I don't know about how we do data lines. I don't know about how to set up broadband for a whole community. Right? These are nuclear reactors. Like, these are things that I am not an expert in. And so we rely on a lot of experts and also like our own ability to sift through BS and to ask the right questions. But we do not hold the expertise ourselves. And so I think that for anybody to assume that lawmakers are really brilliant would be wrong.
Brilliant in your own lived experience.
Sure, absolutely.
And again, it takes a community to do the things that we want to do. If we want to make change, it takes all of us to make change.
And this is why it's so important that when there's an issue that you're like, don't they understand that if they pass this law, it's going to have XYZ consequence, we may not know that.
Yeah.
We may not understand that. And so that's why it's so important to send that email, to call that legislator's office, to come in and testify, to share like your experience and how it's going to impact, your world or your profession or your community, because we do not hold all of that expertise.
So many gems, people. If you are watching or listening right now, take away all of this and implement it into your life. Okay, 2 more questions. Actually, technically 2.5 more questions. So, first month of 2025, first episode, I think it's the 7th. Re-election, a little bit of a ways out. Also right around the corner. Is that something that you plan for at all times? And where do I sign up to help you in 2026?
Love it. AndreaHunley.com. And yes, I'm always preparing. We call it ABC, always be campaigning. So I'm always running. And I am up for re-election in 2026. First will be the primary in May of 2026, and then the general election in November. And typically you announce like a year out from, so like typically I would announce in like November of 2025, but I'm running. I am running again. Sure. I love being as a state senator. I love serving Indianapolis. Absolutely. And so, yes, we're always campaigning. I've already started having fundraisers prior to January, because we actually do not raise funds during session. Sure. So, because we want to make sure that we're not being that we're being ethical.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, always be campaigning.
Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time for sitting through the construction noise that most people probably can't hear, to have this conversation and sharing literally so much with us. There's a lot that I'm unpacking right now in my brain, and I know that I'll continue to unpack as the days continue. Lastly, where do we find you? How do we follow you? How do we support you after this? AndreaHunley.com. Where else?
Yes, and you can follow me on the socials at Andrea Hunley _IN or at Senator Hunley. And Senator Hunley is my official social media, so that you can see what's happening during the session. You can follow along. You can come and stop by the State House. It is the people's house, so you are welcome to come in anytime. If you've never been in, consider this your invitation. It is a gorgeous building. It is beautiful, and your taxpayer dollars pay for it and for us. So remember that we work for you. But those are the ways to find me.
All right. You heard it here. Yeah. Get into the State House. Please ask them to stop doing renovations on the Stutz so we can continue to record here. And go say hi to Senator Hunley.
Yes.
Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you.
100%. Everybody else, episodes every Tuesday on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, at Conversation Peace Pod on all the social media platforms, and conversationpeacepod.com for merch and everything else, including the archives of this show. Don't forget, link in bio for the open door sessions. We want to hear from you. It's 2025, the year of community. That's how we're going to build community, through conversation. I want to give as many people a platform as we can. That's once a month, third Thursdays, 4 to 5 here at the Stutz. Last but not least, we have another incredible initiative coming in February. You're going to want to hear that next week. Announcement coming, so stay tuned. But until then, John Overton and Popular Rapture on the mics, Mike Lee and Mike Lee Productions on the video, Madeline McKinnon, Frida's Flowers for this lovely flower pattern, and the Stutz for this incredible space that we're recording in. And also Brandon Steele, a.k.a. Ill Creations, for the artwork that you see in the background. And lastly, I've been Patrick Armstrong, your host. This has been Conversation Piece, and we'll see y'all soon.